Between the deadlines, the publish or perish culture of academia, or the rite of passage that is rampant imposter syndrome, there are a lot of things built into the academy that are designed by nature to break us down. One could argue this is to weed people out, but I think much of what is supposed to weed people out is unnecessarily cruel. I would be lying if I said there weren't times where I didn't know if I could push through. I wasn't sure if, for me, dealing with the toxic aspects of this career stage would be worth the doctorate I'd get at the end. But I'm still here. 4 years into this degree, I've come far enough to have a good idea of why I'm still doing this. I've got a year left, and if I can do everything on time, I'll be out of here. And that's really what I want in the end, to be done. I don't want to be done and end this before I have the degree that I set out for, but I'm definitely ready to be done with the grind and heartache of grad school and start the next chapter of my life. If you are thinking of grad school, especially a PhD, maybe you can take something away from my experience. Maybe you're in grad school right now, and if you are, I hope you can find some solidarity in what I have to say. When I started my PhD, I'd been forced to take a year off between my master's and starting my PhD because of COVID lockdowns. I think that forced break did a lot for me in terms of not starting out immediately on the verge of breakout. That year gave me time to focus on other things, and for the first time in years, I was able to center my life around things other than school. Still, I worked at a call center, and though I had a good social life, the thought of working at an office job like that for the rest of my life filled me with dread. I think if the furthest you want to go is a master's degree, most people do not have to travel to attend a good program. Maybe if you're in a rural area, you might have to move to a slightly larger area. But for the most part, master's degrees, they're pretty much everywhere. Things are a little different for PhDs. And most other students I know that are in PhD programs had to move away in order to attend that school. And I have never lived so far from home. I went from Kansas City, Missouri to Las Vegas, Nevada, half the country away from where I grew up. I thought I'd be way too busy to be homesick at first. And for the first couple of weeks I was, but it wasn't too long before I missed home with every bone in my body. But I kept going. I have so many plans for the future, so I need this degree. Things at the time were still new enough to me that every opportunity felt brand new, fresh, and urgent. I dove into my PhD program and community organizing with vigor. But the more time went on, the more I started to struggle. Grad school didn't get easier. It got harder. I've struggled with my mental health for years, long before I started grad school, but it doesn't get easier to manage with age or time unless you are proactive about it. I highly recommend anyone going to grad school take advantage of their campus health center, as they usually offer free or low-cost therapy for students. You may not need it right away, but I really suggest looking into what your school has to offer and remembering that for when you do need it, because trust, there will be a point in your program where therapy is your best friend. But I have not seen a therapist the entire time I've been here. I did, however, start with a psychiatrist from the start, as I had medications that I needed to continue, and I had been on those medications for some time before even starting grad school. Not everyone needs mental health medication, so your mileage may vary here, but I encourage those with a need for medication to seek out what resources you can for treatment. In my case, health insurance is part of my funding package, so I am able to get my medications from the campus pharmacy for a pretty low price. I've had to change medications a few times. Grad school is very stressful, and it'll make things that aren't working pretty evident very quickly. So I highly recommend seeing your psychiatrist as regularly as possible. And if you have ADHD, please, for the love of God, get treatment for it if you can. The number one thing that has made my grad school existence very difficult was my ADHD, which I was not on medication for when I first started. I started with Strattera, which is not a stimulant, and then I've moved on. I tried Adderall, I'm on Vyvanse now. And while these medications don't fix my ADHD, they don't get rid of it, they do make my life a whole lot easier. And truthfully, being on things like Prozac as an antidepressant has helped me immensely. I am bipolar. I have bipolar disorder. That means I have to be on a mood stabilizer, and we couple that with an antidepressant because my bipolar disorder generally makes me very, very depressed. This depression, especially within the last few months, has been so bad that it has been affecting my schooling. If I did not have access to a psychiatrist, I do not think I would be able to finish school. It just would not be possible. Between the bipolar, the depression, the ADHD, and my anxiety, I just have too many mental health issues to do this unassisted. So if you are in a program that has health insurance as part of the package, please take advantage of that. You are incredibly lucky. It should be part of the most packages everywhere, but your mileage may vary. If for some reason your medications are not covered by your insurance or you just don't have health insurance through your program, I highly recommend looking into what's available through your state, because truly medication is one of the only reasons that I am still in grad school. I had a pretty solid community back home. Sure, as I got older, I didn't get to hang out with friends as often as when I was younger, since we were all starting our own lives. But I have a great core group of friends that I have known now for almost 15 years. I'm also pretty close to my family, and I saw my parents and brothers 2 to 3 times a week, if not more, honestly. Going from having a friendly face 10 minutes away to only being able to see those faces over FaceTime or Discord was hard. A dedicated Discord server we'd had since lockdown served my friends group well, and it became a primary way for me to stay in contact with my friends. We still use it. I play Phasmophobia with friends back home pretty regularly, and I play with my best friend on video games. He lives in a different city as well. We find ways of hanging out even if it is online. I also try to call my parents at least once a week, and I try to text them every single day. I'm lucky enough to have a good enough relationship with my parents that I can use them as a source of comfort. And I recognize that is not possible for everyone, but whoever is your family in your life, whether they are your blood family or a chosen family, no matter how far away they are, find ways to communicate with them. In the beginning, the biggest treatment for my loneliness was my cohort. We were very small, but we banded together since we were all going through the same thing. It got me through the first 2 years of my degree, and though we don't need each other the way we did then, they are still the only people who really know what I went through. Don't be afraid to branch out to other cohorts too and make friends at all levels. Senior students will have a lot of advice for you, and a student within a year or so of you is going to understand what you're going through. These are people that you want to make kinship with. When financially able, I visited home whenever I could. Admittedly, this has gotten harder and harder to do, particularly as inflation has gotten worse. But I still encourage you to save any extra money you might have to visit your loved ones. It may only be once a year. Maybe you can only afford to go over summer break or maybe during Christmas. But if you are able to find a time to look forward to seeing the people that you love, it will make grad school a lot easier. Probably the most common source of stress in grad school: money. Most grad students get some sort of stipend, and if you're not, you're probably not in the right program, or you go to like law school or something where, from my understanding, they don't really do stipends. But most people, if you're going to grad school, particularly if you're getting a PhD, these programs come with stipends. If your program does not give you a stipend, they should be giving you a stipend. However, no matter what, these stipends are not equivalent to a full-time job. For most students in most places in the US, the stipend simply is not enough to live on. We are still forced to take out loans to make up for what we aren't making just to pay for the basics like rent and utilities. I live on campus in student apartments specifically to save money on gas and not have to pay for a parking pass. I walk to the school buildings where I have classes or I teach, even when it's 105 degrees and the sun is blinding, or the very rare occasion here in Vegas where it rains. Still, I struggle very often, especially in the summer, when we do not get paid our stipend. It is ideal to get some sort of summer job or financial aid, but that has not always been possible for me. When I did find part-time work for the summer, it was rarely enough to cover everything. I am lucky that I have parents who are willing to help me out, but do not get me twisted. I am not from a wealthy family. They cannot pay for all of my needs. They cannot cover my rent. They cannot cover my car note. But they can send me $100 here and there. And very often that $100 is the difference between me eating that week or not eating, between me getting my medication and me not getting my medication. It can be humiliating to ask for money, and it does suck every time I do it. And I know that not everybody has the ability to even ask for $5 from their family, but I am very lucky that, I have people who can send me $20 here and there just to get through the week. But borrowing money isn't a sustainable way to get through grad school. Unfortunately, part-time work can be difficult as well, since many departments require they approve of part-time work. And even then, you usually are not allowed to go over 10 hours or so of work a week. Many places are not going to hire people for only 10 hours. Even retail jobs that only give their employees 10 hours a week, many of them will still require that you be available for more than that. It is very hard, especially now, to find a job where during the school year you can work 10 hours a week, and then there in the summer, maybe you can work more. A lot of these jobs are not willing to work with this kind of weird, erratic schedule. Now, of course, I and many others simply don't tell the department when we get part-time work. They know this, and they choose to look the other way, but still probably don't mention it. When you're a full-time student, adding even a part-time job can feel impossible though. Despite the fact that universities wouldn't be able to function without the labor of graduate students, we are not highly enough valued by the system of higher education to be paid more. Maybe they think it makes us stronger, or that we should have to suffer in order to gain knowledge. More likely than not, capitalism has simply made it profitable to not pay grad students enough, since these universities know many of us will still attend no matter what we are paid. They are counting on our love of education, or our desire to maybe make more money in the future. They are counting on our love of education, or our desire to make more money in the future, to make us willing to take on poverty wages. For me, I decided to monetize my hobbies. It is not ideal, but this is a capitalist world, and I am just one person who needs food to eat. I published my debut novel, a romantasy called The Painted Woman, in 2022. I'm still working on the sequel, but it has been an okay side hustle for me, coming through with a little bit of extra cash here and there when I've needed it. I've also started selling at markets. I have a couple of 3D printers, so I make things and I sell them. Like a lot of 3D makers, I sell a lot of dragons, but mostly because that's just what sells a lot of the time. My booth is fantasy themed, given it is where I sell a large chunk of my books, so having a few articulated dragons to draw people in isn't a huge deal, but that just works for me. It is at least on brand. I sell other things as well, like bookmarks, stickers, and dice towers. I'm learning to 3D model with Nomad to hopefully sell my own designs pretty soon, but in the meantime, I rather enjoy subscribing to a few tribes or Patreon to print cute things to sell. I'm also working on a line of merch to start selling at markets next year. Things like totes and t-shirts and stuff like that with my own art on it. I'm hoping, maybe next year I'll be able to do that. Now, I know I said getting a part-time job can be impossible, and all this side hustle stuff comes out to be about the same amount of hours, if not more really, as a part-time job. The difference is I've managed to find a good side hustle that makes me feel good and allows me to grow. And maybe this sounds miserable to you. Maybe running a small business on the side sounds far worse than just getting a part-time gig at a coffee shop to pay the bills. I get it. Figure out what works for you, because unless you have a lot of cushion, grad school is expensive. Even if your tuition is covered, and even if you do get a stipend, the cost of living right now is more than the most of us can handle. I also think getting a part-time job or a side hustle is important just to give your brain something else to do. I'd probably avoid any school-related side hustles like tutoring, but having something else to occupy time helps avoid burnout if the side activity isn't too stressful. A job at a bookstore or even a bar where you don't have work to finish at home is a good way to occupy your mind for a few hours and let it rest from the constant problem solving and learning required of academics. If you are financially secure, I still recommend at least investing time into hobbies. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be golf, art, reading, hiking. It does not matter. Just do something else. I am begging you. Ultimately, it is okay to prioritize yourself sometimes. People say it a lot, but take care of yourself. Grad school isn't going to slow down for you, but that doesn't mean we have to be racing all the time. Nobody can keep running forever, and eventually you will run out of energy. If that means you need to take a semester off, that means you need to take a semester off. If that means you take one less class next semester, then do that. We all want to get done as quickly as possible, but sometimes we run the risk of not finishing by pushing ourselves too hard. Take it slow if you need to. Don't injure yourself in the process of racing towards that degree. Your entire life cannot be grad school. You cannot eat, drink, and breathe the scholarship that you are doing. Even if you are not burnt out, even if you are in love with every aspect of your schooling, do not let it be everything. Make sure you are feeding the parts of you that are not academia. Eventually, no matter how much you love something, you're going to need a break. You're going to need to change something if you are going to keep going. You are going to need to change something if you are going to keep going. Find something that nourishes your soul, because if you don't, grad school will kill you. Thank you so much for watching this little thing I put together. My name is Victoria. I'm a writer, artist, and academic currently getting my PhD in sociology. I have a master's degree in criminology, and I'm studying to be an educator, although maybe not a traditional one. I love teaching about sociology, whether through video, fiction, or art. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for my next update.